Hello, everybody. I appreciate you joining us today. I'm calling in from beautiful Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. If you've never been here before, do yourself a favor and get out here. It's absolutely gorgeous here, mountains. It's the escape that I absolutely needed. But, I do still have to find time to engage in a virtual world. So I'm excited to have the four of you join us today to talk about a conversation I don't think we talk about enough. So many brewery owners have a team behind them. And, with a team comes challenges, there come a lot of positives behind it. But today, what I want to do is talk about, what it's like to run a brewery with multiple owners. And Larry, because you are to the right of me, I'm going to let you give a brief introduction first. So welcome to the party, Larry.
Oh, and it is a party here at 11 o'clock in the morning. I was going to, have a beer, but I have water. It is 11 o'clock. I'm Larry from Jackass Brewing Company in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, although right now I'm in Pittsburgh visiting some family. Our brewery, we opened March 11th of 2020, so we had a really good first 5 days before our esteemed governor shut us down. It was a very difficult time period, very difficult to be open. I have one partner, my good best friend, Skip Krotzer. He and I own the brewery together, and we struggled, navigated, pivoted, changed, altered, did everything we could to survive. So we survived, and now we're to the point where we're pleased with where we are, and we're thriving and growing even more. It is, I think, really good having two of us. We balance each other out. We have different skills, different talents, different things we do. They do have a saying at our brewery, though, TML, too much Larry, if I'm being too intense. But we balance each other out and work really well together. And I wanted to be a part of this to try to help other people.
Larry, I'm excited to kind of dive more into your relationship and your friendship with your co-owner because, while you only have one other partner, it could be even more difficult when that partner is someone you've become very close with for quite some time. So
that is true.
Excited to learn more about that, but also huge congratulations on your retirement from being a dentist and dedicating yourself fully to the world of craft beer.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much. It feels really good to be retired from my former day job. And the brewery and the excitement and the passion that I have for craft beer was just pulling me, and it was time.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you today. And Will, you're up.
Will Landry. I'm with the Twisted Track Brewpub in Roanoke, Virginia. There are five of us that are owners in the business. I'm the managing owner, which means I'm basically here doing all the work, but not all the work. I'm also the brewer. I've got a long background in accounting prior to this and another brewery that I worked at beforehand. So I've got those two things going for me. But very similar to Larry, I think the five of us all bring a little bit of something different to the table. Two of the other four are homebrewers and have that background, which is why they're part of this business. One of my partners is much more active. He is semi-retired, which means he works his real job about 2 days a week and spends the next 2 or 3 days here at the brewery. But he's been very busy with all the day-to-day stuff, the kind of the routine maintenance that needs to be done. We also kind of opened up during the pandemic. We opened up the Saturday after Thanksgiving last year, so we were about 7 months old. So we're still in kind of a growth phase where we want to tweak some things and add a little furniture as the seating becomes available. We've added a pilot system over the last month that's almost ready to get fired up. All sorts of things like that where he's been kind of helping take that load off of me while I do the day-to-day stuff.
How many hours a week are you working, Will?
It varies, but I mean, it's 60 to 80 easy. But I'm also here doing GM stuff, so it's not always fair to count how many hours I'm here because I'm always here. The rest of the owners mostly silent for the most part. We've got one partner who likes to handle the merchandise and ordering of the one cider for us, which again takes it off my plate. And another one who was used to own a restaurant for about 15 years and kind of helped us organize the kitchen and fire up or decide what equipment we needed until we hired an executive chef who kind of took the reins on that.
And I believe it'll come up again later in the conversation, but are silent owners actually always silent?
Well, no. I mean, in all fairness, the answer is no. I mean, everybody has a say in what we do for the most part, and we can certainly talk about how we handle disagreements and fill an hour's worth of conversation. Just
that's a bullet point on my outline today, so we'll get there.
Absolutely.
Well, Sam, you're up. Let's tell everybody a little bit about what brewery you're at and how many people are involved in the operation.
Okay, hey guys. Well, Josh, I don't think you were here. Just so you know, I'm not in a rape room or anything here. This is or a dungeon. This is the basement. It's a speakeasy bar that my company owns. And everyone else, that's what's up here. Okay, so I'm with Against the Grain Brewery. We're about 10 years old. We are a multifaceted company. We actually are a distribution brewery. So I have a warehouse brewery that's fairly substantial. We do about 10,000 barrels out of that. And then I have 2 brew pubs. One of them has a 15-barrel brew house in it. It does about 1,800 barrels a year. It's located in a baseball stadium, so it's pretty busy. Then I have a little neighborhood brew pub that has a 3-barrel system in it, and we make sake in that place as well. When I say multifaceted, I mean for real. I also have a speakeasy bar that's located in downtown Louisville with a sandwich shop above it that does breakfast and lunch sandwiches. And then I and my partners just picked up a 700-person venue and bar over in another part of town and are looking to get into doing some regional music. We've got a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak, and then we're building another brew pub across the river in Indiana. So we got a lot going on. Now we talk about the partnership. There are 4 managing partners in this organization. Myself, my partners Jerry, Nagy, Adam Watson, and Andrew Ott. Like I said, 10 years we've been at this, so we've all got really unique relationships and roles in this business. And at this point, these guys, I've been with them longer than I've been with anybody else in my life. So it's pretty interesting. As far as investors go, who also we consider partners as well, we have 13 silent investors, and I'll be very excited to tell you how we deal with them.
I'm excited to learn. So Sam, how many different physical businesses, locations do you have with your team?
5 currently. I think I forgot to mention also, we have a partnership with a restaurant group in Japan and have an Against the Grain brew pub over in Ishigaki, Okinawa. So
wow.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess you can count them as a partner too, but we're kind of silent with those guys.
That's probably a story in itself. But the same team of managing partners outside of your Japanese location are the same in the States?
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming today to share your perspective.
Thanks.
Tripper, you're up. Welcome to the conversation.
How's it going, guys? Sorry if it's a little bit loud. I got plumbers in here today, so they're making a little bit of racket, but it's the only day they could get over and help us. So I'm Tripper Mathews. I'm the head brewer and one of the managing partners, or we call it operating partner, here at Tusculum Brewing Company. I'm one of 7 owners and partners. Me and my wife, who she's not here right now, but she's our COO, and she runs all of our daily operations, anything with accounting. She came from a real her prior career gave her a lot of experience into doing that. It's our partnership is broken up into 2 parts. Basically, my dad, me and my wife are the operations of the daily, and then everyone else, who's my uncle, and then some friends, are all outside of that curtain, and they the daily operations can make any decisions they need to make within, and then everyone else, they can have opinions, but if we got to go forward, then we'll move how we see fit, and that's just the way we kind of run it, and it's been okay. We do have there is things that people would prefer we do, and that we sometimes struggle with that. And our brewery is located in Boerne, Texas, which is about 20 minutes outside of San Antonio. So if there's a little small 7-barrel brewery, about 410 barrels a year. So that's it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all that, Tripper. And I apologize for my internet connection. I'm away from home and trying to find the best Wi-Fi I can. But Josh, you're up. You have a neat little ceiling above you. Where are you at?
Yeah, so I am sitting at the bar, actually, in the brewery. I'm Josh Norris from Witchdoctor Brewing Company. We're in Connecticut in Southington, which is a little bit southwest of Hartford. And we have a 15-barrel brew house. We have 5 members. I'm the managing member. I have 2 of the other members that help me run the place. We kind of split duties. Not 100% split duties. I'm kind of involved in everything. Meaning I do the day-to-day business stuff. I'm also involved with development and R&D and processes and stuff like that for the brewing. Unfortunately, I don't get to brew very often anymore. I still occasionally get to be involved with cellaring and after the fact stuff with the beer, but trying to do the day-to-day business stuff and actually have a brew day is rough. So we have one partner that is the brewery manager. We have another partner that is the taproom manager. The taproom manager kind of helps me with some of the day-to-day stuff as well. And then we have 2 quote-unquote silent partners, my 2 parents. And the taproom manager and I kind of have come to the point where we sort of run the show together. At the end of the day, I'm any tiebreaker. It's my decision at the end of the day. But I like to involve the guys as much as I can, as much as it makes sense. We do a big variety of beers. We have 16 on the tap list right now, plus ciders and seltzers. We don't make the cider yet. We're hoping to get into cider and wine making. Our state just made it last year legal to do that, and they refused to give any details on that. So we're going to have to do some digging and probably pay someone to help find us some information on that. What else?
I think that's fantastic for now, Josh. And you led us to an interesting theme. I've heard quite a few of you mention family today. And we're going to dive into, first off, why did you decide to have other people involved in the ownership of your brewery? Was it because you needed their money? Was it because you need their expertise? I'd love to go around the table and hear, 1, why you chose to open a business with multiple partners, and 2, if they weren't people you already knew, how did you find them?
So that's actually quite an entertaining story on my end. I started with different partners. Of course, my parents haven't changed, but there was now ex-wife involved, and someone that she introduced me to, that the 2 of them just didn't work out for different reasons. And it was quite clear during the build out and as we were first opening. Oh, we've been open for about 4.5 years, by the way, that the partnership wasn't going to work out as it was. And so wound up offboarding them and onboarding the couple of guys that were working here that were doing more than their share and very interested in being functional parts of the team.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Josh. How about you, Larry? I guess, you and your friend, did you call him your best friend?
Yeah, you could say that. We've been friends for a very, very long time. We started home brewing, of course, I think at this point, maybe 9 years ago. And we like to say that we had a drinking problem. We loved to brew, but we couldn't drink it all. So we started giving it away. The partnership, I was thinking of this as I was listening to the other panelists. We built our brewery from the ground up. We bought the land. I have a partner in the real estate end of it, who's our real estate developer, who bought the land and essentially built the building. I have since bought into the real estate arm. That partnership is absolutely fantastic and very, very easy. It was a natural progression for both Skip and I to join forces, and we need to do this, and we need to do it together. We just have progressed into, while we don't have sort of an accountability chart where it's hard written, you do this, I do this, we've kind of fallen into areas that we feel that we can be more successful than the other guy. And it goes both ways.
That's interesting, Larry. So when you form the partnership, there isn't anything written down that talks over who's going to handle what responsibilities?
That is true. We had meant to do that, but then it just got away from us, got so busy. At the time, we both had full-time jobs, and we opened and then got shut down. So during the shutdown, we sort of morphed into doing more things at the brewery since we didn't have employees to do them. And I think it's just been for us a natural progression of I do certain things and Skip does certain things. We have a smoker program. Skip loves, I like to say he loves rubbing his meat, then smoking it. So he handles that as part of an auxiliary to the kitchen. Both he and I brew beer. I love brewing beer. I love the art and science of it. And of course, before we went into this, we were told brewing was 70-75% cleaning. I don't think that's accurate. I think it's more. So we both do a lot of that. And we, like I keep saying, have kind of morphed into doing different things to get the main job done. We both have the same vision. We just have different mechanics that we contribute to get to that vision.
No, that all makes sense. Will, how about you? Why did you decide to open a brewery with multiple partners?
I mean, I think in all honesty, if there had been a way for me to do it myself, I probably would have. But I think the reality is, you've got to have people around you with different skill sets, and the bottom line is money. I mean, it's the way it is. You can't. Bank's not going to give you 100% financing or anywhere close to it. And I, being a brewer for 4 years prior to this, and so forth, having a family, I'm not made of money. So that was really the bulk of it. I'm happy with the people that we all got together that came together for this. The other part of your question was, how did we meet? The first partner I met through friends. He was an avid home brewer, and then the homebrew club locally, and I was still off and on active in that. So I met him through there. The other two I met, Virginia Tech, the college, does a 1 week intensive program at the hotel here, the Nice Hotel in Roanoke. And people come from all over the region and almost all over the country at times to take this class. And like I said, it's like a 1 week intensive class where they not teach you, but they kind of show you the ropes on what it's going to take you to open and run a brewery. And two of the guys that were local in that, I happened to meet through that class. And the fifth one is my father. And he was a restaurateur for 15 years before the landlord kind of said, "Nah, I'm going to give this place to my son." And he was looking for something to do. So
the course at Virginia Tech is a great program. I actually spoke at it a few years ago. I don't think you were there because I don't believe we've met face to face. But
no,
I've
only been at the social hour at the very end of it.
Yep. But Larry's been with his partner for, probably almost, half your life, Larry? How long have you known Skip?
Probably 10, 12 years. So not
12
quite.
years. And Will, you mentioned you met someone through your homebrew club. That's a little scary to me. I mean, obviously you have the common interest of beer, but you're meeting someone who has that shared interest of beer, and you're inviting them to your personal life. While it is, your professional life as well, that's a lot of trust that comes with that. Like, how did you vet a new partner like that?
I don't know where the risk would necessarily come in. I mean, you've got the upside to me is you've got somebody who knows the process, knows the costs involved in the making of the product, is probably much more likely to understand what is needed to run a brewery, at least from that production standpoint. I think where we butt our heads the most is in the actual management of the place. And again, I don't know. I don't want to jump into a question that's coming later. So.
And we're definitely going to get into that one. Now, Tripper, you had mentioned there's 7 people involved in the ownership of your brewery. Is it all family?
No, it is not. So it's me, my dad, my wife, and my uncle are the only family. And then the other 3. So prior to brewing, I worked in a very different field. I have a background in chemistry. I worked in the frac sand industry, particularly in constructing and building plants. And so we worked with the team that would build and construct plants. And so I've worked with those people for now over 12 years. And so we came to the idea, I'd helped some friends with some lab stuff at their breweries because I just had lab background. That's how I got into the pro brewing world. And I said, I want to do this myself. It was me. At first, it was that original team that we had gone. We'd go out to the middle of nowhere and we'd put up a plant. We'd run it for a year. And so that's kind of how our team was formed. Not really so much from a money perspective, more from some of the people are engineers, some of the people are architects, so that we could just go in and into a place and just build what we need to build. We were self-funded entirely, which is because, the banks don't really want to, they say that they're like, oh, we'd really love to give you money. And they're like, no, never mind. We'll give you money with all these clauses and things. That ended up being a really good thing for during COVID in that we weren't held to anybody. We'd already spent the money we were going to spend. And we just had to try and just float by. And we were closed. We were open for 7 months, closed for 7 months, and now we've been open for another 8 months. So
it's going to get better. And Tripper, at the end of the day, is one person on your team the quote unquote boss?
Technically, from a leadership standpoint, my dad is technically the managing partner. From a general leadership standpoint, that he isn't truly in the day-to-day operations. My direct boss is my wife. She's the head of operations. So she does all the money side of stuff and things like that. So I directly report to her, and she directly reports to my dad. She also manages any front of house employees, and all I have to manage is just my brewing staff and everything. So it works out good that way. It's a little bit weird. Maybe some people working with their spouse. I know that's been talked about before. It works for me because I worked months and months out of town for a long time. So I enjoy working with my spouse because I get to see her. So, because before I started the brewery, I had 1 year where I was home for 7 days. So, this is it's still, like Will said, it's like 60, 80-hour weeks. Pretty much that's the same. I'm here all the time. I enjoy what I do. The money's not as good as it was, but that I enjoy what I do, and I don't have I get to see my family and things like that a little bit more. So
that's definitely a great perk. Josh, how about you? Why did you decide to bring partners on? And how many do you have once again?
Including me, it's a total of 5.
And why did you decide to bring them on? Was it you needed their expertise, you needed their money, or a combination of all the above?
Really, it was money. It was money. The banks don't want to finance very much these days, and it wound up helping that to have somebody on the team at the time. He's actually one of the people that isn't here anymore that had at least some professional brewing experience. I came from the homebrew world, and in addition to that, I came from the mechanical engineering world and the music world. So, just the hodgepodge of things I've done in my life seems to have kind of stacked up really well to where I'm at now, but the banks didn't seem to feel that way.
And for everyone who wants to check out your music career, where can they find you?
I don't know if it's still up. I used to have a MySpace for my band Ride to Ruin back in the mid-2000s. Since then, I've raised a family, and I'm still in process of that. moved across the country. I finally got most of a group of guys together. We're doing kind of a recording project, hoping to have an album ready for the next year or so.
Nice. Well, that's a great segue to Sam, who can maybe host a release party when the time comes right.
There you go.
Sam, I like to kind of go back because you've been in business 10 years now. Is everyone on your team like a childhood friend, or had you had relationships with them for quite some time prior to opening the business?
Yes and no. So first, I want to apologize for the background noise. There's some sort of HVAC thing that I've never heard in my life here, so it's awesome. Anyways, no, we actually, the partnership that I have, the managing group that we have, we were all co-workers at a different brewery located here in Louisville. It's kind of funny. I have not been in any other industry similar to this. Right out of college, the best job I could get was like an orderly at a hospital because I was a terrible student and really studied up on drinking beer while I was there. So
it was research.
Yeah, that's what I tell people now. Back then, though, I vividly remember my parents saying, "Why did you do this?" Anyhow, yeah, the first good job in the brewing industry that I got was with Bluegrass Brewing Company. I badgered the head brewer at the Brewpub here in town until he gave me a job sweeping the floor and cleaning kegs. Little did we know at that time that he and I would become business partners, and then subsequently also bring one of our other employees. I took a Brewpub, he took a Brewpub. We were head brewers. We did some good stuff. Our assistant then came on with us, and we were like, "Hey, let's open a brewery." We kind of felt like the place we worked at didn't represent our skills or talents. So all of us in my group are actually brewers. Now, when you open a business, we started with a Brewpub because that's all we could get. And it was serendipitous, guys. I hear all this, we can't get any money. Those are true. That's been true forever. I had a very serendipitous moment. I and my partners cobbled together investment from family and friends and got together a couple $100,000 in that, and went to the bank and asked for a loan. They laughed us out. Went around looking for properties to see if we could start a one-barrel brewery. Well, we got really fortunate. We went to a brewery located in a baseball stadium here in Louisville that was defunct at the time, and noticed that there was an idle brew house in there. Contacted the owner and ultimately bought his debt with the little bit of money that we had, and then turned that into a couple $1 million. So yeah, we like to call it
Nice.
And Sam, you had mentioned that everybody on your team had experience being a brewer. As we all know at this table, you need more than just the brewing skills to successfully run a successful business. So how did you, gain the skills on the other side of the operation? And at that point in time, how did you divide the responsibility with everybody being a brewer?
Well, we have too many chiefs. You can't have that many chiefs in a brewing operation. And to us, all the four of us, we were all like, well, I'd love to be the brewer. But the reality is only one person fits in there in that brew house and should be running it. So we kind of all agreed to defer to our natural talents. My partner, Jerry, who was ultimately my mentor when we got started in this industry, he was the natural choice to be our brewmaster. He's still incredible. He does a wonderful job. Our assistant, our brewery assistant that came on as our partner as well, is actually an attorney. He was a non-practicing attorney. So, that goes a long way in all of this.
That's a good friend to have for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So he's been able to kind of manage the regulatory side and compliance, and in the beginning, our financial picture as well. He was the most apt to pay attention to everything. One of my other partners, Andrew was actually a waiter at the restaurant that the Brewpub was. Little did we know, though, that he had just taken that job after being laid off. He was opening Bonefish and Outback restaurants all over the U.S. So he had a keen sense on running restaurants and establishing them. So I myself, when I came to the partnership, ultimately I knew everyone in the city, and I'm able to speak to anyone. I think it's the gift of gab today. So my talents kind of drifted or migrated towards marketing and sales. and we've all kind of deferred to each other up until the last couple of years. And in the last couple of years, we've decided that it's time to pull each other closer and start more active participants in every aspect of the business. And that kind of happened because we grew so we have 150 employees. So at this juncture, it's not us brewing or doing these day-to-day things. We're managing a business top down, and with it being so diverse and having so many facets, it's kind of necessary that we act as a board more than individual actors as we had before. It's so, as far as the relationship that we have, though, it's pretty interesting. We have this rule of no nepotism, so no one in our collective families works for our businesses, any of them. We made that kind of a rule of thumb, and it's worked out really well for us. I will say, though, as far as the investment goes, I am not the manager, but also an investor in the company, and my partner's Adam, and his father, wife's trust, and I think father-in-law are investors as well. But we have a really unique operating agreement that essentially quells any interference that those, we call them non-managing members, would have. They have the ability, if things go crazy, they have the ability to form a board and then address any problems. But for all intents and purposes, we have them as silent, and we make that abundantly clear every single time we communicate to them. You guys don't have a say, you get a check.
I imagine they're quite happy as you continue to grow.
At this point, yeah. In the beginning, there was a lot of questions, but nowadays they know very well it's not necessary.
So with regard to you and your managing partners, do you have your responsibilities written down in any sort of agreement, or is it unspoken like at Larry's place?
I would say it's unspoken to the degree that we have some accountability clauses in our operational agreement, and we hold to those pretty close. And that's been really helpful in guiding us. You know, we're friends because we've been together for so long, but at the same time, we're also business partners, and the business is large enough now and leveraged in so many different ways that it's very important that we hold each other accountable for what we do. So it's pretty easy at this point to address those things. Now, there are a lot of unspokens. You know, we have a meeting once a week where we get together, and sometimes that meeting is we just drink some beers and laugh and cut up. Other times it's pretty ruthless and painful. Somebody's getting their throat cut for something that they've done or not done. So, but the reality is, though, when you walk outside of the doors, or walking into the door of the meeting, we know that it's for the good of the business, and it's for the good of all of our well-beings and our employees and what we've built. And then when we leave that, we're still people and friends, you know, and associates as well.
Absolutely. And Sam, I want to go back to one thing you mentioned about your partner, Andrew. We had a conversation last week and it came up, you know, how do you maintain the vibe of, you know, expanding, let's say, your empire, opening multiple brew pubs, but not having that corporate feel? And, you know, you mentioned Andrew came from like being a trainer at places like Outback Steakhouse. And my wife also worked for Outback Steakhouse as a trainer for about a decade. And some of the skills they teach you, you know, while they are in like the corporate restaurant sense, they apply to any business. So how vital has his role been in, you know, helping train and open multiple locations?
I mean, in essence, his efforts account for about 40% of our revenue, so it's pretty significant. You know, and I have to credit him for the way he took kind of, like you said, the corporate mentality of operations and stringency, and took the wireframe of that and brought it to us, and was able to establish a palatable, you know, essentially, you know, independently, locally owned space, but still has those processes in place. You know, we have taken a lot of efforts, both he and I, to ensure that we have a culture within our company that respects the people that work there, and so that they understand that they're a part of this thing that's greater than us owners, but also themselves. But also has all of these safeguards and frame, you know, the framework for them to have, you know, a fruitful, you know, safe experience working for somebody. So it really just does come down to kind of pulling out the best parts of it and then leaving behind the things that might be a turnoff for some people.
Oh, Andrew's down again.
He's down.
Hi,
I
Andrew.
On that
apologize.
note, though, I think that is one of the most important
Guys,
things
I have
that
no
we've
idea what just
established
happened with my Wi-Fi.
over the
But so
course
Sam,
of
that's
our business is that culture. I don't know about you all, but I can assume that it's the same thing.
We work very, very hard to have the culture, and although there are advantages to being more corporate-like, we never want to be corporate.
What's going on?
We have right now. We brought on a taproom manager and a woman that we call the director of operations, which she's kind of writing manuals and standardizing everything. And as a management team, we have meetings twice a week. One where we go over numbers and data, certain KPIs. The other where we call it the leadership meeting. My partner and I, Skip and I, frequently will sit and have a beer. One of the best things we built onto our brewery was a rooftop deck that is 10 by 12, only for owners. So we will go up there and get away from it all. Although we're still at the brewery and present, we can just chat and talk about strategy, things that we're doing, things that we want to do, things that we have to pivot. And we do that probably once or twice a week.
that sounds like a great place to get away, Larry.
It is. It's really, it was primarily Skip's idea. We of course supported it, and it's the deck is there for maintenance purposes only, but there are chairs. But I like Sam. What you were talking about maintaining the culture and not being so corporate. And we just lost Sam. Darn it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a challenge because as business owners, you want to be as successful as possible. And like you mentioned, Larry, it's great to have things written down. It's great to have your operations manager kind of put things in paper. That way you have them for future reference. So for everyone else on the team today, how are you kind of laying out the division of
What the question, I guess, was how are we laying out division of like structure?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So our structure at Tusculum is my job in particular, outside of the brewing side, is I make sure that I have to report all like my records to like all the partners and everything, and so that they can see how we're doing. We do that. We try to do that quarterly. It doesn't always happen, but that's what we try to do. My wife's job above my job is that she reports directly to my dad, who is our managing partner. So my main job is just to keep beer in tanks and keep us pushing forward in that direction, and not let things go empty. And then hers.
I heard that was important at a brewery.
Yeah, can't run out. But other than that, it's my father's, I guess, sort of role is in our town. We have a lot of like inner regulations within the town. That's like zoning regulations, things like that, fire code, and so anything that's above and beyond, like where we're doing operations daily, and then we need to send someone to the city or to deal with a singular person, we'll send him kind of as that mouthpiece to go do those types of tasks. So he's a little bit like has worked with the community for a long time. It ends up working out better for us that way if we do that. So. I guess whoever wants to go next.
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in here, I guess. For us, we have a taproom manager and an executive chef, kitchen manager, So they are more or less responsible for everything that goes on in those two locations, from staffing to customer needs and so forth. My job as the brewer is, like you said, make beer. I'm also, for the most part, the accountant, human resources, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how we've more or less done it. And like I said, I've got one partner who does a lot of the kind of day-to-day maintenance, repairs, upgrades. We're only 7 months old, so we're still adding a few things, fine-tuning the business to meet customer needs and so forth. So, I don't know that my responsibilities will be maintainable for very long, being here as long as I have. So at some point, we're probably going to need an assistant brewer or somewhere, maybe even a GM or what have you. But for now, it's working, and we're doing well, so I can't complain.
The greatest day ever is whenever you comfortably have them, and you say, I think you're better at this than I am. The greatest day ever.
And you got to be okay with that.
We all have so many responsibilities.
Yeah, I'm certainly not. Go ahead. I was going to say, I'm certainly not a chef.
And I know on my desk, I have literally a list of things that I want to give up. So I'm sure all of you in your breweries have so many tasks that you wish you could delegate to someone else. And as you continue to grow,
on that note, one thing that it's pretty interesting. So having in this whole partnership thing, when you have so many partners and you are growing, you do have to come to a place where you add people in, and they're either restaurant managers, they're brewery managers, they're a financial officer, they could be your chief executive. It just depends on where you're at in your growth scheme. But one of the biggest challenges that we have had was my partnership, each of us being on that same page where it was time to add a person for that. And I say that because, I may have been ready to add in that chief marketing officer or that executive that can handle both marketing and sales at a high level. But my partner, Jerry, who's our brewmaster, isn't really necessarily ready to give up some of the responsibilities that he's carried that are relative to that person's position in the organization. So it's really been a challenge. And I'm happy to say that it took a pandemic and being crippled financially by all that came with that in order for us to get in that place. I mean, it really did help us get positioned to where we were all on the same page with, okay, it's time for an executive. It's time for a C-level employee. It's time for the true brewmaster or head brewer of the organization and so on. So, we stopped hiring friends and started hiring professionals, is I guess the way to say it.
There you go. I love to hear that. In our situation, Skip and I, we had managerial staff that, as we have since found out, was functioning very ineffectively, and perhaps we succeeded despite our previous managerial staff. We were in the position this past spring. I was at this spot earlier, Sam, like you were alluding to, than Skip was, that we needed to bring some people on. Fortunately, we hired a taproom manager that is just fantastic. He is the exemplary servant leader in the taproom. And then while we were searching for the taproom manager, we interviewed a young woman who has just turned 22. She was so impressive that, her skill set, how she handled herself, the professionalism, what she's done, we had to create a position for her because I didn't want to lose her. So we created our director of operations, which I came to that we needed her more faster than Skip did, but I'm glad that we got together, discussed it over a beer or two, and came to the same conclusion that this young woman could really, really help us out and help make us more professional while not being corporate. One of the things about her that I love to say, and she gets embarrassed when I say this, is her first day on the job, she looked around and said, I love a job where I can say fuck. But she has brought a whole new level of handling things
That's really great insight, Larry. And Sam, thanks for starting the conversation on that. For everyone else, have you realized there's a skill set missing from your team that you want to add on? Or have you realized at any point that there's someone on your team that may not necessarily be ideal in your team for the greater period of time? You don't have to say any names, Will.
So I have two very good managers, very similar to Larry. They both do fantastic jobs. One runs in the tap room, one running the kitchen. They are oil and water. And I don't know if you call them alpha females. I don't really, I don't know what the best term for them is, but for whatever reason, they're struggling with each other. And up to this point, it's been kind of taking a hands back approach and said, you guys need to sort this out yourself. And it's just not coming to terms. So I don't want to lose either of them. At some point, though, it's going to be a question of what's best for the business.
Yeah. If I can interject right there, we had a situation similar to that with our former management team, and seeing that in action, what I have started the mantra within our brewery is we don't have a front of house. We don't have a back of house. We have one house, 4 walls. We have a tap room and a kitchen, work together under one roof. And
we've kind of found the same thing, that if we all work together, and we're all brewers in a facet or another, but like Sam said, you have to pick one. So we picked one. My job is to get the company to the next step, do the day-to-days, and get into the beer where I can. So I can't be the brewer. We've got Rob to be the brewer. We got Mike as our taproom manager. Both are fantastic at their jobs. We all work together really well for the most part, but sometimes there's personality situations. Someone's having a bad day. Somebody is in a mood for some reason, and there's responses that just aren't cool. And it can be about anything, but sometimes we just have to sit down with each other and have that conversation. Listen, the way you reacted to this wasn't really cool. We gotta find a different way to do this. Going forward, we'll set guidelines as we need them. And on a side note with that, sometimes it's just not fixable. That's why we got rid of 2 partners and brought 2 others on.
There's so much to take in there, Josh. So I'll start with the first part, the easy part. When you have a disagreement, it's just simply sitting down and discussing it, what's been most valuable to your brewery, or have any of you considered, bringing in like a mediator from the outside, or what have been the best strategies to handle any disagreements between you and your partners?
I think the best strategy is just to always remain calm and respectful. If you can talk to somebody without getting stressed out and sounding stressed out and frustrated, it's going to be a much more peaceful conversation. People are going to be a lot more respectful of you and your thoughts, and people are going to be more willing to really think through the situation logically and even leveled. We've been fortunate enough not to really need mediation outside of ourselves. We've had to mediate each other from time to time. If 2 of us are at each other's throats over something, the third one will come in and kind of mediate that. But we've been really fortunate that we haven't had to go beyond that, and usually that's a pretty quick fix. It's all right, guys, sit down. This is how we're going to have to talk about this. I understand your point. I understand your point. Let's find a middle ground.
That's good advice there, Josh.
Always remember, this is for the better of the business.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, how about you? I imagine over the years you've kind of evolved with your way you handle disagreements, I should say. What have you found the best strategies to kind of handle when you and your partners don't get along?
Well, we never always get along. I mean, that's never going to happen.
Ain't that the truth?
That's the beauty of having that holy room where it's only us in there, and I can look at one of them and say, "Fuck you, you're wrong. I'm right. I know everything. You're lucky I'm here." No, I think it just comes down to that mutual respect. Having a partnership with with somebody the way I have for so long, and where we're headed is very similar to a marriage. You have to have mutual respect and trust in one another, and know that ultimately we all want the same thing. We want as much profitability as possible. We want quality of life for everybody involved. And, then there are some ancillary things. Maybe someone wants a legacy. Maybe somebody wants to be recognized in the community. There's a myriad of things that come out of a partnership. You learn what people want, and their life space kind of dictates that as well. But we do have those kind of places where we disagree. I think one of the Facebook users had a question: is how do you address a quote unquote owner that is unwilling to stay in their lane or give up
Sam, I was getting ready to throw that your way, so thanks for jumping on it.
Well, I can say that I and my partners have addressed it in a myriad of ways, but it always ends up in the same place. We argue, we complain, we play Survivor with each other, and pit one another against each other in this room. But at the end of the day, we always talk through whatever the issue is and collectively settle out on a plan or a response. And it's really helpful to be able to do that when you have 4 people in a room, because you can have an even split. In that even split, if we're voting, we have an even split. It means that nothing is happening. In a for-profit business, if nothing is happening,
that's not good.
You're failing. You're losing money. There is no break even in that sense. So
absolutely,
we're all capitalists, and we understand very well that that's just not going to work. So sometimes the greater good just comes down to what can we do, and is it the best option? Well, if somebody's planted a flag and I disagree with them wholeheartedly, there have been times amongst the partnership that I have deferred and said, you know what, for the greater good, it's okay to let this one go and go the other direction.
And how hard is that for you, Sam? I mean, no one likes to be wrong sometimes. So how do you accept, it's not necessarily failing, but, going with someone else's idea instead of what you thought might be the ideal solution?
Being an entrepreneur and growing the business to where it's at, I have to say, I have a huge ego, and I'm well aware of my ego. And it is necessary to be aware of your ego to do that. And I'm happy to say that in I would say the midlife of my business ownership life right now, I'm doing a good job quelling that sometimes bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's what drives me forward. But there are times that it gets in the way, and I know that it's there, and that's when I'm able to say, yeah, for the better good, I think I'm gonna back off on this one and go the other direction. So,
well, I think Sam and Josh, you both hit on something that's really important and a point to emphasize. Within our brewery, Skip and I both have egos. We express them differently at times, but we have to. And I think Josh, you mentioned this a couple times. We know what the goal is and the vision is for the brewery and the business. So we have to adhere to that. And all decisions are for the good of the business, not for the good of Larry or the good of Skip, or either of us as partners. Sometimes we have to put our egos aside and say, well, you know what, that is a stupid idea. But like you said, Sam, sometimes there might be, I don't really agree with that, but I trust him and he has the vision in mind. And if he firmly believes in that for the good of the business, then I'm just going to go with it. And
that's a thing that really helps. And it's something that I've really worked in developing over the years, especially being involved with music. As a musician, you got to work with other guys that may have big egos, and it always works out better with smaller egos. And to keep in mind that maybe you just didn't think of something. Maybe someone else just happened to think of something different. Always keep in mind that someone could have a great idea, and maybe your power is accepting that and realizing that, hey, this is a good idea.
Yeah, and it's okay to say, well, geez, I didn't think of that. That is a good idea.
And that's really go back to the first part of the conversation. That's why you brought on your partners, because they bring in different expertise to the table that can help you all be as successful as a whole together.
Yes.
Now, this conversation can go on forever, and I apologize if we go over a little over the hour mark. If you have to go, totally fine. But, looking back on your careers in the brewing industry, whether it's been just a year or 10 years, what's a lesson you've learned from working with multiple partners that we haven't touched on already? Is there, you know, something you came into with this is the way you thought it would be that's evolved over time? Or what's some advice kind of looking at those lessons you've learned that could be helpful to another brewery owner that either has multiple partners or is considering opening with multiple partners?
That's a pretty powerful question. I think we've touched on a lot of things. The first thing that comes to mind is something we just discussed. You got to put your egos aside and have faith and trust in your partner that what we are doing collectively is for the good of the business and the good of the vision and the mission.
Also, make sure as best you can not to bring on partners with addiction issues.
That would be important.
We're going the hard way.
It could be very, very easy in this business to go down that rabbit hole.
Some people are really good at hiding it too for a long time.
I would say, I mean, this is kind of like what Larry said. Is it's about the business. You got to have a little bit of thick skin sometimes in certain scenarios, and also on the other side of that, as an owner and being true to the business, you might have to step on some toes, and you got to be okay with doing that, and still maintain friendship and be cordial with one another, and that can be hard sometimes to do.
It has to be okay to have tough conversations and then come out the other side okay.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yes, for sure.
Hey, if I could answer that one, and I don't know if anyone got that, but one of the things that I have I picked up, and I think it's vital in the partnership, is knowing what everyone's personal goals are and what makes them happy. You know, we like I said, the pandemic brought my company to its knees, and I'm proud to say that we stood up and with fervor and are now probably more stable than ever. But in all of this, when we were deciding should we move forward, we started to explore what makes each of us happy, you know, as a collective, and understanding that, and it really has done wonders for the relationship that we have. You know, one of my business partners, you know, pretty well said, "Hey, I'm getting to where I don't want to do this anymore," and it's a tough thing to hear when you're all grinding and working your asses off. But at the same time, I totally respect him for telling us that, and you know, and now we've collectively started to create a plan to where he can still reap the benefits of being with us, but also step away and pursue some things that make him more happy. I think it's really, really important when you have a partnership to respect your business partner's goals and desires that are outside of the business as well.
And Sam, because you've been in business 10 years, I mean, in your partnership agreement, is there anything written for like an exit strategy for a partner who say maybe wants to leave your business to go pursue other dreams? Or is that kind of on a case-by-case basis? How are you handling that conversation?
We in the beginning addressed it because we weren't like family members or anything. We addressed it and created kind of a safety valve for the company that would remove the cost, so to speak, of that person, but they could retain their ownership. Since that time, we haven't amended it, but we've discussed that being vague is a good thing because, you know, I love these guys. We've been doing this for long enough that I think the world of them, and I trust the hell out of them. No matter what's going on, we're all people. And if I see that they have a different path to happiness, I'm going to support it. And so we all agree that, well, let's just figure it out when we get there. And when we do, if someone wants to take off and you know, maybe we alter where their salary goes, or, you know, whatever it is, we're just going to make it easy. We're going to make it easy for them because the four of us, we went all in. We didn't have anything else. We all just went all in, and it's shown.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And Josh, I want to throw this your way because you had to deal with partners leaving before, and I don't want to get too personal with you, but, you know, did you have anything written out if these things were to happen, how it would be handled?
No, actually we didn't. We do now. But we unfortunately did not have the good sense to have something like that written down first. So we went through a combination of really tough times getting people out, and got really lucky the way we got people out, and that they were willing to do that. but I would not recommend going into it without an agreement written up on behaviors of partners and how one would leave and what kind of behaviors or activities or circumstances would create a forced leaving of a partner.
And Sam, it's interesting that you're the one with a lawyer on your team, or out of work lawyer, whatever he wants to call himself these days, and he didn't put some sort of clause in the agreement on this.
Well, I mean, we have a pretty ironclad operating agreement with mechanisms to remove somebody who's crazy, or, you know, we discuss that. What if you lose your mind? You know, what do you do? Or here's another, what if you die and your wife is the heir to your stuff and your wife is crazy? What if your kids are, you know, somewhere involved in all this? So we created all of these mechanisms to protect the company. But we on purpose made the mechanisms that we use for our own, I guess, our departure on our own accord. We made that something that's vague on purpose. Now, if somebody is a liability to the company, then, you know, we have ways to get rid of them if we need to. But, you know, the idea is that you get into business with folks that are of sound mind, and hopefully they don't go crazy, you know. But to Josh's point, you do need to have your I's dotted and T's crossed, and we have that. With the attorney and all of that is the one who made that so. And then I think he's also one hell of a human being, and he put that in there as well when he wrote it up.
I think, not to make the COVID parallel, but if the past years taught us anything, is to plan for the unexpected. And when you start a business, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're planning for successes together, but you also don't know what's going to happen. I want to go to the comments right now. We had someone comment financials. With multiple partners, is there one partner as the primary with access to the others and quarterly statements? Seems like a single point of responsibility makes sense. What are your all thoughts on, you know, who's controlling the finances, who has access? Sam, you're shaking your head to the left and right now. What's that mean?
If you have ownership in the business and you don't look at the financials and make it a necessary part of your day, week, month, whatever, to understand what's going on, you're failing your business and you're failing yourself. It is absolutely imperative that all partners know what's going on financially, especially managing partners. Now, I think as a point of courtesy, if there's a non-managing partner or an investor and they want to know what's going on in the company, me personally, I feel like that is kind of a no-brainer. Like, hey, if they're willing to take a shot on us, you know, they deserve the right to know how we're performing. They, you know, you got to know how your investment's working. So I wholly believe transparency is the absolute necessity in this.
I 100% agree with you.
For us, Skip and I are both equal partners. We do sit down once a week and review the financial data and numbers. We both have access to the financials, although, of course we do. Although I primarily do the day-to-day managing of it, but we both have access to it. But I also realize that I am at my limit of what I can understand and do financially. We are very fortunate that our friend who's the real estate end of the business, he has 5 or 6 companies. He has a full-time CFO. This CFO is a fantastic guy, kind of like an idiot savant for money. So he is going to come on soon as our fractional CFO to oversee the finances, manage everything, and to make sure that we're using the money wisely and handling the money wisely.
That's good. I wish I would have done that 10 years ago.
I'm such a smart move.
I'm glad that we have the opportunity. I'm glad that both Skip and I see the advantage of it. One of the advantages, I'll be honest with you, he secured our PPP money for us and already secured the forgiveness. And he already arranged for our ERC credits. An amazing thing. We've been open for a year and a half. We're expecting about $230,000 back.
Nice.
And we would not have been able to manage that had we not had our fractional CFO come on and know what to do and how to make these pieces of the puzzle fit.
Great feedback there, Larry. As we wind this conversation down, I just want to throw out one final question to the group right now. We've talked a lot about ways you have overcome the challenges of working on a team, but what's one example of how you still aim to be a better person and a better partner, and something you still are constantly working on to be the best you can be for the sake of yourself and everyone involved? And Larry, you are to the right of me, so you get to go first again.
Right away, I want to be able to listen better and not talk, and hear and understand and see other points of view better and be a little calmer about it.
Great advice there. Will, how about you?
I think a lot of it, the biggest thing that we have is kind of a lack of knowledge, and maybe not necessarily communications, but we've got four other partners, or I've got four other partners now who don't necessarily sit in on the day-to-day activity of the business. They're not here necessarily when we're running around like chickens with our head cut off on a busy Saturday night. And I hold on one second. I got a door. Whatever. Anyway, that's what you get for being the only guy at the brewery. So I think that's it. I think it's teaching these guys the day-to-day stuff, getting them familiar with what happens in the kitchen on a day-to-day basis, what's going on as far as the customer relationships are concerned, so that when they do try to make, or when we need to make decisions, they're the best decisions for the business. And I think that's really the issue that we're fighting with the most. If somebody wants to put up a sign somewhere that lists all the beers or whatever, is that the best place for it? Is it in the way? Is it, the best use of money, space, etc.? And we don't always agree on those little types of things because we're seeing it from a different perspective.
Wow, Will, with every great answer comes a ton of great questions that I wish we had time for today. So much insight you all are throwing out on the table. Tripper, you're up. What's one thing you still aim to do better?
The biggest thing I would say is, kind of as Larry said, is communication between one another. I feel like a lot of where we have maybe pitfalls or things where people feel as though they've gotten upset is that they haven't been communicated to. So what I've tried to do better, and one of the things during COVID helped out is because everybody was just around. We didn't have any staff because we had to let our staff go. And so I've tried to maintain as much of that communication from them, like, hey, yeah, we're going to be, if we're brewing this day and here we're doing this, or this beer's coming out, or whatever it is, even just so that they kind of know, like, going forward, most of the, and in that, they appreciate that, and they've sort of, some of the things that are like we're, like what Will said, like, oh, we're putting up a sign or we're doing this and that, they've sort of moved away from that, like maybe being like a point of contention, and just allowed us to just do daily operations without getting as mad. So I've tried to improve that bridge of, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what's coming up, here's this, and you want to come out and brew, or you want to do something, whatever it is, and trying to help keep the bridges of communication open. It can be really hard with a lot of people. Everybody's got different personalities and things, but it's helped us out a lot. So
awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Tripper. Josh, your turn.
I'm always trying to improve everything I'm doing in little ways, in big ways. I mean, it winds up being little ways most of the time, but sometimes there's big ways. It's just kind of my personality. I always want to do whatever I'm doing better. And I try to instill that in my team as well. But specific things I'd like to do better is, form and run a team. I'd like to, we have just a small handful of employees right now. I'd like to build that team and get better at managing and selecting it.
And good luck as you continue to form the best team possible. And Sam, you've been in business quite some time. What do you still aim to do better in your life?
So, I told you we meet weekly, my partners and I. Annually, we have this like kind of intensive come to Jesus type meeting where we talk about what's going to happen next, and that's where you hash out a lot of things. We all we are all encouraging each other, bring some goals, bring a personal goal and a professional goal. And it's just kind of a structure we created to make sure we were focused on what we wanted to do and the important things in life. So this year, my goal was to be more empathetic to the people around me, my partners, my employees, my family. And in doing so, I caught this quote on a movie I watched. It was the truest sign of love is to listen. And so I have spent as much time as I can this year forcing myself to listen more than speaking and trying to be heard. And I think it's been very helpful because it's strengthened the relationships that I have in not only my family, but also my team and partners as well. So I think that's something that I can never give up, that now that I've started to build that muscle, I need to exercise it as much as possible. So I will be more empathetic and continue to listen. Beyond that, I think, get up earlier, drink more water.
Sam, I couldn't agree with you more. So as
Gotta
many of
have
you know,
admirable goals, big goals.
I have a 2-year-old, and it's been my constant goal to start waking up earlier for quite some time now. So I've got a routine just based off having to do tasks really early in the morning. I started waking up at 6 a.m. The only problem is my son's now waking up an hour early. So I get up, I make my coffee, and you think you're going to get work done, and there's never enough time in the day. So always
I've
a
got a
challenge.
1-year-old Andrew, I feel you.
Yeah, Josh, we should connect. Text me when you wake up tomorrow. I'll make sure I'm up. We'll do a little accountability there.
There we go.
But Larry, Will, Tripper, Josh, and Sam, this has been a fantastic conversation. I think your insights can be really helpful to anyone, whether considering or currently operating with multiple partners. And it brings up so many questions that we could probably dive into a part 2 over time about best strategies, best practices, challenges, how to handle them. Because every brewery, every business is a different situation. And one of your strategies might not work for everyone, but something else, another one of you suggests, might be the key to someone else's success. So I really appreciate you all joining us today. I apologize, my camera's been a little iffy today, but like I said, I'm in beautiful Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. Highly recommended. I hope to share a beer with all of you at some point over the next year or so. So I can't wait to that. But once again, thanks again, and we'll see you all soon. Have a great afternoon.
Guys, thanks everybody.
All right, see you guys.